Well, hello and welcome to First Chapter Friday. Thank you for joining us today. I am Miss Carter, librarian assistant from the Meadows Elementary. And today I'll be reading Miriam's Secret. It's written by Debbie Waldman. In 1930, 9-year-old Miriam travels by train from Brooklyn to her grandparents' farm in upstate New York. Her grandparents are kind, generous people, but they aren't exactly ideal playmates for a lonely girl. When Miriam's not doing homework in the kitchen with Bubby or helping prepare meals for the migrant workers that Zadie hires to help out on the farm, she plays with the barn kittens born just before she arrived. Those kittens are her only friends until the day Miriam discovers a young girl hiding in the barn. Cece and her brother, Joe, who's one of Zadie's farm hands, are on the run from an abusive uncle back in Mississippi. Miriam and Sissy hit it off immediately, but their friendship is tested when Miriam is forced to choose between keeping a promise and doing the right thing. Okay, now that we have some idea what it's about, let's get into it. Miriam was startled awake. Her mom was shaking, the window next to her bed rattling like chattering teeth. A long, eerie whistle reminded her that she wasn't in Brooklyn anymore. Sitting up, she pushed the curtains apart, expecting to see a giant lifting her grandparents' farmhouse off the ground. But the moonlight revealed only the lights of a caboose. She watched it disappear down the snow-covered train tracks. The night fell still and silent once again. The next time Miriam opened her eyes, sunlight was leaking through the curtains. Her grandmother was standing by her bed, smiling down at her. Bubby had a smudge of flour on her cheek, and her soft gray hair was coming loose from her bun. "Rise and shine, Mary," she said cheerfully. "I've got your breakfast all ready." When Bubby went back down the stairs, Miriam knelt on the bed and pushed the curtains apart again. The train tracks cut a path through the snow, stretching from the bridge over the road at one end of the yard all the way to the woods at the other. Letting the curtains fall back together, she turned to the closet where Bubby had stored her clothes. As she pulled on her dress and wool stockings, she kept an eye on the window, wondering when the next train would come. Bubby had set a bowl of oatmeal at the kitchen table. Miriam looked around the room. She said she had never seen such a big kitchen. It was almost as big as her entire apartment back home. She wondered if Bubby and Zadie were lonely eating at the big table every day, all by themselves, surrounded by empty chairs. She thought back to her breakfast the day before with Mama, Papa, and Bubby at the cozy table in their apartment in New York. Mama had served her favorite warm, chewy, bilious, soft cheese and smoked whitefish. "What do you think Mama and Papa are doing right this minute?" Miriam asked her grandmother as she stirred a spoonful of molasses into her oatmeal. Bubba looked at the clock over the sink. It was almost 8. "I imagine they're getting ready to board the ship. They're setting sail today." "I wish I could go with them," Miriam said wistfully. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. Bubby pulled a handkerchief from her apron pocket and passed it to Miriam. "It's not a journey for a young girl," she said. "Gabriel and Raphael are babies," Miriam said. "Why do they get to make the journey?" "They have to," Bubby reminded her. "It's the only way for them to get to America." "Uncle Abram can bring them," Miriam insisted. He's coming to America too, so why do Mama and Papa have to go? She knew why. Mama had told her so many times she couldn't count. Bubby gave the same answer. Your Uncle Abram can't take care of two babies himself. He needs your mama to help him. And she can't travel that far alone. Miriam still didn't understand. It wasn't as if Mama would get lost. All she had to do was board a ship to Germany, and from Germany travel by train to the old country. Uncle Abram would meet her at the station in Warsaw, and together they would bring Gabriel and Raphael back to New York. Papa couldn't help with the babies, so why did he even go? Why did he even need to go? Your mama has never been to Warsaw, Miriam. Bubby reminded her. She doesn't speak Russian. Papa had lived in Warsaw until he'd moved to New York 14 years earlier. A cousin of a cousin of a cousin had found him a job operating a pushcart. Cousin Mendel also had a pushcart. He sold paper and pencils. Papa sold buttons and thread, which is how he had met Mama. Your mama needed pewter buttons, not silver, not gold, not tin. They had to be pewter. Papa told Miriam whenever she asked to hear the story, which was often. What did I know from pewter? He knew from pewter, Mama would say, laughing, he just pretended. Miriam liked the idea of Papa being so in love with Mama that he purposely did not try too hard to find the special button to keep her coming back to the pushcart. By the time I found those buttons, your mama was in love with me as I was with her. Papa said proudly. Now Papa and Mendel ran a dry goods store together. Mendel had brought the rest of the family to America. Papa wanted to do the same, but his parents, Miriam's other grandparents, had died soon after he left Warsaw, within a few months of each other. His brother Abram had never really wanted to leave the old country. Uncle Abram only changed his mind when his wife, Tanti Shaya, died of a fever 2 months after the babies were born. Miriam said a silent prayer to keep Papa and Mama and Uncle Abram and the twins safe and get them back to America as soon as possible. It was her fifth such prayer of the morning. If only Lindbergh's flying machine was big enough for an entire family, Miriam said with a sigh. Bubby reached across the table and patted Miriam's head. A ship is much safer than a flying machine, Miri, she said. But a ship is so much slower, Miriam said. She remembered when Papa had shown her the newspaper story about Charles Lindbergh flying across the ocean from Long Island to Paris in only 33 hours. It was her 8th birthday, and Papa had brought home the newspaper as a keepsake. She still had that newspaper in a trunk at the foot of her bed with her other treasures. I thought you were excited about coming to stay with us on the farm, Bubby said. You can have all kinds of adventures here. Mama had whispered almost the same thing into Miriam's ear the previous day. The farm is full of surprises. You'll be so busy. The time will fly. Papa and I will be home with Uncle Abram and your cousins before you know it. Bubby was still talking. So much you can do here that you can't in a city full of cars and sidewalks and buildings and noise. How can you sleep with such noise? Here, it's so peaceful and quiet. Miriam shook her head. No, it's not, she said. I heard a train last night. Eck, the train, Bubby said, leaning back in her chair. You'll get used to it. By next week, you'll sleep right through it. Does it come every night? Miriam asked. Trains go up and down the track every night and every day, Bubby replied. They travel from Canada to Florida and everywhere in between. Like Utica? At New York City? Miriam asked. Bubby nodded. Miriam was confused. After breakfast the day before, she and Bubby had climbed aboard a train at Grand Central Station in Manhattan. When they stepped off in Utica, it was time for dinner. Zadie had met them at the station. Then he'd driven them to the farm in his pickup truck. The ride was so long that Miriam had been fast asleep when they arrived. Why didn't we take that train yesterday? Miriam asked. Why did we have to get off in Utica? Only freight trains travel on that track, Bubby said with a smile. Freight trains carry things, not people. What kinds of things? Miriam asked. All kinds of things. Clothes, food, pots and pans, even stoves and ice boxes. Why not people? Miriam asked. The cars don't have seats, Bubby said. Just big empty spaces to hold the freight. Imagine sitting on a hard floor all the way from New York. I don't think I would like that, Miriam said. Bubby nodded. I don't think so either. Well, guess what? You can find out what happens next by checking the book out from your library or reading it online. Just go to getepic.com. Okay, that concludes chapter 1. We hope you enjoyed the first chapter of Miriam's Secret. I know I did during our DeSoto ISD Library's first chapter Friday reading celebration. Thanks again for joining us, and be sure to check out what happens in chapter 2.